worship God is to worship God through self-sacrifice for others. So the message is very clear that Nigerians should love one another, and that poverty is not a crime, and that poverty could sometimes be a virtue of God, and that whatever you have, you should be able to share with your brothers and sisters.
Take a look at some of the reactions to poverty is a virtue. Jerry said poverty is a virtue from God, said Akpabio, the Senate President of Nigeria. This comment reflects a troubling mindset. It's hard to believe someone in such a position could express such a thought without understanding its implications, especially during these trying times in our dear country. This raises questions about empathy and responsibility. If our leaders were truly dedicated to serving the people, the average Nigerian would be able to live comfortably and meet basic needs of life: food, housing, education. Unfortunately, the reality is quite the opposite. Nigeria is rich in resources, and if they were properly managed, no one will rant. Akpabio should rather focus on controlling. Can I say that word? Yeah, I cannot say that word. I cannot say that word. Rather than saying all of this, a dirty man in and out. Okay, let's move on to the next tweet. K8S tweeted, "Hope the Senate President knows that the Pope gave his $32,000 monthly salary to the needy. He gave out a Lamborghini, giving to him out. He uses his personal money for charity, and the Pope was not indeed poor, but selfless, which is an attribute of a true leader. The Senate President's message is misleading and deceptive." Busayo also tweeted, she said, "Poverty is not a virtue and not from God. God has given humanity everything we need to be prosperous. Arable land for farming, natural resources everywhere, especially in my country, Nigeria. No state in Nigeria is without resources for the prosperity of her people." Now, I think, Dr. Batu, you'd always talk about context, Vimbai. Context to every statement that is made is key. Now, in the context of what the Senate President was saying, I believe he was talking about the Christian virtue of not being covetous or looking at somebody else's property and longing for your own, being content with what you have. But in a situation where we're in a country that ideally, if people had what they needed, their basic Maslow hierarchy of needs, the basic things that they need to survive, then they can decide to choose whether or not they want to give it out or they want to live a more modest life. But we're in a situation where the people here do not have a choice. They're forced to live a lot of times in abject poverty. In that case, is it truly a virtue then?
Okay, two things. Context that you talked about. The Senate President, Cardinal Akpabio, led the Nigerian delegation to the burial of Pope Francis. And it was in that context that he was talking about poverty. A pope, at the burial of a pope who chose the Jesuit, part of the Catholic Church, the Society of Jesus, it is called, who took a vow of poverty after the fashion example of his patron Saint Assisi. St. Francis Assisi, and in that regard, the Pope, when he died, his entire patrimony was $100. He said they should bury him in a wooden casket. He was a very humble man. He was a Pope of the poor, a Pope who promoted the prophetic church. I want to think that it is in that context that the Senate President, Cardinal Akpabio, was talking about poverty can be a virtue, because everybody, praising Pope Franciscus, for the fact that he lived a very simple life. In terms of messaging, yes, we can deal with that. But when the Senate President went further and said poverty is not a crime, if he was speaking in a general sense in that regard, then you can understand when Nigerians are a bit uncomfortable. What does it mean that poverty is not a crime? Is he recommending that Nigerians should be luxuriating in poverty, what is called multidimensional poverty, which even the World Bank and the IMF now say is going to get worse in Nigeria? So the timing of that kind of comment, that poverty is not a crime. So Nigerians will legitimately ask him, does he know what poverty is? He has been commissioner. He has been governor. He is Senate president. He is a political leader. He is leading delegations. You don't go and tell people, who are struggling, going about with these pockets are still empty.
We need to help Dr. Avanti's pockets.
People like us who are going about with empty pockets, that poverty is not a crime. No, poverty becomes a crime when people in his position describes it as such. Because the responsibility of government is to ensure the welfare of the people, to spread prosperity, to give the people hope. So for a leader coming from a country saying, you can't be poor, it's not a crime. They like Pope Francis. No, it's not every Nigerian that wants to have a patrimony of $100. There are people who say that, look, this wealth that belongs to Nigeria, share it equitably. Let us all have access to what is available in this country. So that's where I think that the Senate president may run into trouble. Because we see our leaders living it up, everybody enjoying and all of that. And we, the people, we are the ones who have to worry about food inflation. We are the ones who have to worry about NIMET officials. They're down tools because their salaries have not been paid, right? In the FCT, school teachers, nurses, midwives, they went onto the streets to protest. So you go and tell those people that poverty is not a crime. They should enjoy it. No. So that's where the problem is. But as for the delegation, I think it's important. It was good to see Nigerians there, both those led by Senator Akpabio and those who went in their capacity as Catholics. And now that the conclave is going to convene by May 7th, it's also gratifying to know that one of the cardinals who will choose the next pope will be the Bishop of Ekulobia. The Bishop of Ekulobia, he is 62. It fits into, the age range. You must be below 80 for you to qualify. So Cardinal Akpabio will be representing us, in that conclave. Yeah. So we also have a stake in the future of the Catholic Church.
Absolutely. That's a very important point to note.
Well, very quickly, Kachi, I think it's very important that we don't glamorize poverty because this is a trend that we've seen gain momentum where I believe it's called poverty porn, where we glamorize poverty and we try to make it seem as though, this is one of those ills that exists, so we normalize it and we just say, they're the poor. And we speak down on the poor and we speak down on poverty as though those people chose to be in that condition. So to say poverty is not a crime, poverty is a virtue, it's hugely unfair and actually very insulting to those people who are waking up every day to try and do what they can. They work the hardest, by the way, yes, for 70,000 naira. Many are still earning less than that. So to start saying poverty is not a crime, okay, fine. If we're going to have a conversation about some of the virtues that we should emulate, and if we're trying to say that take heart, if you're at the bottom of society, it's not the end of the world, then as a leader, he should start by leading. Let's see him emulate the humility, the prudence, the modesty. Let's see it from him, because just from looking at the pictures of that outing at the Pope's funeral, look at that massive delegation. Was it necessary to have all of those people there for the Pope's burial? Yeah, fine, maybe if they'd gone on their own personal tickets. But you look at this and you say, some nations had a head of state and first lady, and of course the entourage that follows. But Nigeria had this large delegation. You ask yourself, then you now start saying poverty is a crime, and it's just very insulting and very unfair when we have leaders talking down on citizens as if they are not doing their best best, given the circumstances, to try and make ends meet. Of course, poverty is not a crime, but maybe if it's not a crime, then maybe he should just taste it small first to see if, you know, to see if it won't pain him. Like, because trust me, poverty feels like a crime.
It does.
It feels like, who did you?
It's a burden. It's a heavy one. And to say that just shows that, you know, there's truly